Okay, let's be real for a sec. We've all been there. Staring at that to-do list, the one that's like a mile long, feeling totally overwhelmed. Like, where did all the motivations go?
Happens to the best of us.
It does. But what if I told you there's like an art to tackling that feeling? That's what we're diving into today with the art of laziness.
It's pretty cool. Gets into the why behind procrastination, not just the surface stuff.
And it starts strong, taking 100% responsibility right off the bat.
Yeah, none of that blaming your workload or your cat or like Mercury in retrograde.
Right, so easy to blame outside stuff.
Totally. But the book's like, blame keeps you stuck.
Interesting.
There's this story about a farmer and a sparrow. The sparrow keeps telling her chicks, don't worry, the farmer's not going to harvest the wheat yet.
Okay.
First he'll send his sons, then he'll hire laborers. But nothing happens. In the end, only when the farmer actually decides to do it himself does the wheat get cut.
Okay, even a sparrow gets that action is key. So, like, what's our excuse? How does that translate to our own to-do lists and goals?
It's all about empowerment. When you take 100% responsibility for your actions, or inaction in this case, you stop feeling like a victim.
Right.
You become the architect of your own outcomes. You have the power to choose differently.
I see. So instead of, oh, I'm so lazy, it's more like, okay, what's one tiny step I can take right now to move forward?
Exactly. And that leads us to another big point. Comfort zones, cozy as they are, can be the enemy of growth.
So we got to push ourselves a bit, even if it's kind of scary.
Think of it this way. Stepping outside your comfort zone, even just a little, opens you up to new stuff. New experiences, new opportunities, new ways of thinking, even.
Makes sense.
The book actually recommends embracing a sense of urgency.
Oh.
Not like panicked urgency, but more like, let's just do this kind of vibe.
Don't overthink it, just act.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of letting things sit on my list forever because I felt like I needed, every detail figured out first.
There's wisdom in keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Acting decisively, even if it's imperfect. Like, remember that idea of making decisions with maybe 70% of the info?
Instead of waiting for that 90% that may never come.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been there. Overanalyzing things to death. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut.
Absolutely. And that kind of ties into this mindset shift the book talks about. From chasing quick fixes to attracting what you desire.
Okay.
Becoming the kind of person who naturally draws success instead of constantly seeking like external validation.
That's powerful, but how do we make that shift happen?
Self-discipline and embracing delayed gratification. Asking yourself, are the choices I'm making today benefiting my future self?
Interesting.
The book uses Vincent van Gogh as an example. Immense passion, tons of talent.
Right.
But he struggled.
Because he lacked the discipline to manage, his practical life.
Passion alone isn't always enough.
Right.
You need that consistent effort, showing up even when it's not easy or glamorous. Exactly. Making choices that might not be instantly rewarding, but ultimately lead you closer to your goals.
So where does saying no fit into all this?
Think about what you're saying yes to right now. That might be draining you.
Okay.
Saying no to some things lets you say a huge yes to what truly matters. It's like choosing your destination before you set sail.
Okay.
Without that clear direction, you're just drifting, susceptible to every, whim or request that comes along.
Makes sense. So I'm guessing multitasking, which is kind of like saying yes to everything at once, is not part of this equation.
You got it. Remember that Mars Climate Orbiter story?
Oh.
Even the tiniest errors, because of scattered focus, can have huge consequences. Our brains just aren't wired for effective multitasking.
I gotta admit, I'm totally guilty of that. But you're saying focusing on one thing at a time is actually more effective in the long run.
Way more. And not just effective, but it can lead to greater accuracy, a sense of accomplishment even. What's the one thing you could focus on right now that would have the biggest impact on your work?
Wow. That's a great question to think about. Definitely makes me want to reevaluate how I tackle my to-do list. But how do we keep from getting overwhelmed, especially when there's just so much to do out?
Routine.
And?
Delegation.
Okay.
The book talks about Leo Tolstoy's daily routine, which was surprisingly simple. Consistent, focused work time. And by delegating those low-value tasks, the stuff that drains us, we free up mental space for the things that truly need our unique skills.
It's like giving ourselves permission to prioritize what matters most.
Exactly. And this leads us to some cool techniques inspired by Japanese philosophy. Have you heard of Ikigai?
It sounds familiar. Isn't that about finding your purpose?
Yeah, it's often translated as a reason for being. Really resonates with the book's whole message of intentional living.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Ready to hear more about that and whatever else this book has to offer. Okay, so we're back, ready to dig even deeper into this art of laziness. Before, we were starting to talk about ikigai, but the book actually throws out a whole bunch of techniques, philosophies. Where should we go next?
Well, one that really hit home for me was Parkinson's Law.
Okay.
Ever noticed how work just, like, expands to fill whatever time we give it?
Oh, tell me about it. I could spend a whole day writing one email.
Right. So Parkinson's Law basically says if you give yourself 2 hours for a task, it'll take 2 hours.
Makes sense.
But if you only have 1 hour, you'll find a way to get it done in that hour.
So are you saying we should set, like, tighter deadlines for ourselves? I mean, that creates urgency, sure, but wouldn't that also mean rushed work,
Yeah.
lower quality?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more about training your brain to focus, to work efficiently. When we have less time, we naturally cut out distractions. We zero in on the essential steps.
Okay, I'm willing to try it. What about this 5-minute rule I saw? That one caught my eye.
Ah, yeah. The 5-minute rule. If you can do it in under 5 minutes, do it now.
So instead of adding it to my ever-growing list, I should just knock it out.
Boom. Done.
Okay.
Those tiny tasks, like sending a quick email, filing something, making a call, they seem small, but they build up, create mental clutter.
Oh, I feel that. A million little things swirling around in my head. But wouldn't that constant switching between tasks make it harder to, like, focus on the big things?
Actually, the opposite. By getting the small stuff out of the way, you free up mental space. Prevent them from becoming those, like, nagging distractions.
Okay.
Plus, you create momentum. Makes it easier to tackle the harder stuff.
It's like clearing the decks before you dive into the deep work.
Exactly. And speaking of staying on track, remember that 2-day rule we talked about? Consistency.
Right. Never miss doing something 2 days in a row.
Yep. So if you skip your workout today, get back on track tomorrow. No excuses.
Got it. Life happens, we all slip up, but 2 days in a row, then it's easier to make excuses to fall out of the habit.
Exactly. The 2-day rule keeps you committed, even when you don't feel like it.
I like it. Simple, but effective. Now, there was also this Pomodoro technique. I've heard of it, never really tried it. Can you break that down?
Sure. It's basically time management, using a timer, breaking your work into intervals. Traditionally, 25 minutes,
Oh, okay.
separated by short breaks.
So like 25 minutes of focus work, then 5 minutes to recharge.
Yep. And after 4 of those, you take a longer break, 15, 20 minutes. This structure helps you stay focused, prevents burnout. You work with time, not against it.
That makes so much sense. I often get sucked into work for hours, then I'm just wiped. I'm going to try that Pomodoro thing.
I think you'll like it, especially for those tasks that need, like, real concentration. Now, beyond these individual techniques, the book also talks about your circle, the people you surround yourself with.
Oh, interesting. How do our relationships play into all of this? Conquering laziness, I mean.
Well, the book argues that our habits, our behaviors, they're heavily influenced by the company we keep.
Makes sense.
So if your friends are always complaining, making excuses, putting things off, it's going to be that much harder for you to stay motivated, focused.
It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. It's not about ditching your friends who, struggle with laziness, but it does highlight how important it is to, like, seek out people who inspire you.
Who support your goals, challenge you to grow.
Exactly.
I've noticed that myself. When I'm around people who are proactive, driven, I feel more motivated too.
And to add to that, the book also cautions against taking advice from just anyone.
Oh.
It says you shouldn't take advice on something from someone you wouldn't trade places with.
Makes sense. If they're not living the kind of life I aspire to, their advice might not be so helpful.
Exactly. Advice is often a reflection of, the giver's own experiences, their beliefs. Choose your mentors carefully.
Got it. Now, there's another thing I wanted to bring up. Worry. I feel like worry can be a huge roadblock to getting things done. Does the book talk about that?
It does. And it highlights this great Mark Twain quote, "I am an old man and have known a great many troubles, most of which never happened."
Isn't that the truth? So much time and energy wasted worrying about stuff that never even happens.
Right. The book says figure out which worries you can control and which ones you can't.
Okay.
If you can do something about it, take action. But if it's outside your control, let it go. It's not worth your mental energy.
Focus on what you can change.
Exactly. The book even suggests this little exercise. When you're worried, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Often, the worst-case scenario isn't nearly as bad as we imagine it. And even if it is, we usually have more resources, more resilience, than we give ourselves credit for.
That's a good point. Puts things into perspective. Now, I'm curious about this doing the hard things first idea. Why is that so important for, overcoming laziness?
Think about it. We naturally gravitate toward what's easy, what feels good,
Sure.
but real growth, progress, often requires us to do stuff that's challenging, uncomfortable, maybe even a little unpleasant.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Just get it over with. But I have to admit, I often procrastinate on those hard tasks, let them hang over my head all day.
The book addresses that. It says, hard choices, easy life. But easy choices, hard life.
Wow, I like that.
It's true. By always choosing the easy way out, we might feel good in the moment, but in the long run, we often create more difficulty, more dissatisfaction.
So short-term sacrifice for long-term fulfillment.
Exactly. By making those tough choices now, working up early to exercise, saying no to distractions, tackling that difficult project, you set yourself up for a life that's more in line with what you truly value.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But how does delegation fit into all this? Some people might see that as like a form of laziness, but I'm guessing the book has a different take.
Definitely. Delegation is all about playing to your strengths, focusing on the tasks that only you can do.
Okay.
It's realizing you don't have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's just smarter, more effective to get help.
So it's not lazy, it's strategic.
Right. Identify those low-value tasks, the stuff that's eating up your time and energy, scheduling, routine emails, social media. Find ways to delegate those.
So you can focus on the high-value stuff, the things that need your unique skills. But how do you know what to delegate?
The book gives this tip. Ask yourself, even if someone else does this 90% as well as I would, is it still worth it? Often the answer is yes. It helps you let go of perfectionism. Realize that sometimes good enough truly is good enough.
Good point. But letting go of control can be tough. Any advice for people who struggle with that?
It's definitely a process, but the book stresses that, letting go of those beliefs, that we have to do everything, that no one else can do it as well. That's crucial for being more productive, having a bigger impact.
It's about trusting others, empowering them to contribute, realizing that teamwork can often achieve better results than trying to go it alone.
Exactly. Working smarter, not harder. Now, since you mentioned earlier you're always up for learning new things, I think you'll like the section on how to learn faster.
Oh, definitely. Always looking to optimize my learning. What are some of the takeaways there?
One of the biggest is learn what's actually useful.
Okay.
Don't fall into the trap of learning just for the sake of it, accumulating knowledge that doesn't actually help you achieve your goals or, enhance your life in any real way.
Be intentional with your learning.
Exactly. Ask yourself, how will this knowledge help me reach my goals, solve problems, make a positive impact?
That's such a good question. Helps you prioritize, make sure you're investing your time and energy wisely.
Right. And the book also stresses taking action.
Okay.
It's not enough to just passively absorb information. You got to actively engage with it, apply it, experiment with it.
Don't just know things, do things with what you learn.
Exactly. And this leads to another key point, speed.
Speed when it comes to learning.
Yep. The book says you can't afford to be passive or hesitant when you're learning new stuff. You got to have a sense of urgency. Dive in. Get started right away.
I can see how that would prevent procrastination, self-doubt. But doesn't that kind of contradict the idea of slowing down, savoring the learning process?
It's a balance. The book acknowledges that starting can be the toughest part.
Yeah.
But the longer you wait, the more likely you are to get discouraged or distracted.
Got it. So be deliberate, but also decisive.
Right. Now, since we're on the topic of learning, what about speed reading? Does the book recommend that?
I'm curious, too.
Actually, it's a little skeptical about speed reading, especially for books that need, deep thought, reflection. It quotes Naval Ravikant, who says, if you can speed read it, it isn't worth reading.
So quality over quantity when it comes to reading.
Exactly. Savor the process, engage with the ideas, allow time for reflection.
Absorb the wisdom, not just race through to add another book to your list. That's something I need to remember.
And speaking of reading, read widely. Different genres, disciplines.
Fiction, nonfiction, self-help, history, philosophy, biographies, everything.
The whole shebang. Expand your horizons, challenge your assumptions, gain new perspectives.
The more diverse you're reading, the more well-rounded you become. Love it. Now, there was one technique that really stood out to me. Do this for 10 minutes before you sleep. What's that all about?
It's a simple practice, but powerful.
Yeah.
Reflection and planning.
Okay.
Take 10 minutes before bed, review your day. What did you accomplish? What did you learn? What could you have done differently?
Like a mini debrief of the day.
Yep. And then plan for tomorrow. Create a short to-do list, the most important things you want to get done. The book says write it down on paper. The act of writing helps solidify your thoughts, your intentions.
Keeps you organized, focused, setting yourself up for success before the day even starts.
And in addition to reviewing and planning, use those 10 minutes to practice gratitude.
Remember the good stuff, even on the tough days.
Exactly. Appreciating the people, the experiences, the opportunities you're grateful for. It shifts your mindset to one of positivity, abundance.
A mental reset before you drift off.
Precisely. Now, the book also has this technique called 3 arrows.
Okay.
It's about prioritizing your most important tasks. Imagine you have 3 arrows. Those represent the 3 most important things you want to accomplish each day.
So instead of trying to do everything, you focus on just 3 key things.
Yep. Narrow your focus, increase your chances of actually getting them done, making real progress toward your goals.
Avoid feeling overwhelmed. Stay productive. That's a great strategy. I feel like I'm learning so much. And we haven't even gotten to the Japanese techniques yet.
We'll get to those next. But we've covered a lot here. Parkinson's law, the Pomodoro technique, the power of your social circle, the importance of gratitude.
This book is packed with strategies. I'm already rethinking how I approach productivity. Can't wait to see what else we uncover in the final part of our deep dive. Okay, we're back, and I'm ready for those Japanese techniques. They sounded so interesting.
They really are. A whole different perspective on, productivity and well-being.
So, Ikigai. We touched on it before, but can we unpack that a bit more? I'm still not totally clear on what it means.
It's like your reason for being, finding your purpose. The book's point is, when you know your purpose, you're way less likely to feel lazy or unmotivated.
Yeah.
It's like this inner drive that pulls you forward.
So not just something you enjoy, but something meaningful, something that fits your values.
Exactly. And it breaks Ikigai down into 4 parts. Doing what you love, doing what you're good at, doing what the world needs, and doing what you can be paid for.
So it's got to be all of those things.
It's that sweet spot where, your passion and skills and values meet a real need out there in the world.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually find your Ikigai? Is there a process?
It's more about exploring, looking inward. The book says ask yourself things like, what makes you happy? What are you naturally good at? What problems are you passionate about solving? And how can you use your skills to make a difference?
Those are good questions. It sounds like finding your Ikigai is more of a journey, not a destination.
Totally. Stay curious, try different things, see what really lights you up.
Love that. What about Kaizen? That was another one the book mentioned.
Kaizen is all about continuous improvement. Small steps, incremental changes, not those big overnight transformations.
So instead of trying to change your whole life at once, you just make, 1% improvements every day.
Exactly. Tiny changes, but consistent. Over time, they add up to something big.
Like building a muscle. You don't start by bench pressing 200 pounds. You got to work your way up.
Perfect analogy. Kaizen is about being patient, persistent, knowing that putting in the work day after day is what really creates lasting change.
Okay, I'm on board with that. What about Shoshin, the beginner's mind thing?
Shoshin. Approaching things with fresh eyes. No preconceived notions, no judgments. Like that sense of wonder you have when you're learning something totally new.
Like seeing the world the way a kid does.
Yeah.
Full of possibility. But how do you hold on to that, especially as you get older, more experienced?
It takes effort. The book suggests practicing mindfulness. Pay attention to your thoughts, your feelings, without judging them. Be open to new ideas, new perspectives. Let go of needing to be right all the time. Embrace the joy of learning.
Be a student of life, always eager to learn more. I like that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Now, there's one more Japanese technique I think you'll appreciate, especially since you're into self-care. Hara Hachibu.
Yeah, remind me what that is again?
Eating until you're 80% full. Being mindful of your portions, not overeating, because that can make you sluggish, sap your energy.
So instead of stuffing yourself, you pay attention to your body's cues. Stop when you're satisfied, not overfull.
Yep. It's about having a more mindful, intuitive relationship with food. And it's amazing how much that can impact your energy levels, your well-being overall.
Treat your body with respect. Give it what it needs, but don't overdo it.
Exactly. Oh, and we can't forget Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing.
Yes. Spending time in nature. I love that.
It's proven to reduce stress, lower blood pressure, boost your immune system, improve your mood. It's like nature's own therapy.
I always feel so much more relaxed, clear-headed after being outside. Now, the book also has this section called 10 Tiny Habits That Will Change Your Life. Those sound intriguing.
They are small changes, but when you do them consistently, they can make a big difference.
Like what?
Well, one is just moving your body. Even a little bit. Our bodies are meant to move, and even small amounts of activity can have a huge impact.
So even if you can't do a full workout, you can still find ways to move more throughout the day.
Right. Take the stairs, park farther away, walk during your lunch break. It all adds up.
Find those little ways to make movement a part of your life. What
Now,
else?
drink more water. It sounds simple, but staying hydrated is key for your body
Right.
and to key your mind. It's like fuel.
Makes sense.
The book also talks about having a purpose, which goes back to ikigai, surrounding yourself with good people, taking risks, and avoiding multitasking.
Okay, yeah. Those are all important. Now, the book ends with this powerful call to action. Wake up. What's that all about?
It's a reminder that time is precious. Don't waste it on things that don't matter. Live with intention. Make the most of every moment.
Don't be complacent. Live up to your full potential.
Right. And it leaves us with this beautiful quote. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love.
Wow, such a good reminder to be grateful, to approach each day with a sense of purpose. This has been such a great deep dive.
I agree. So many practical strategies, philosophical insights. It's amazing what this book packs in.
We've explored the psychology of laziness, looked at techniques to be more productive, even tapped into the wisdom of Japanese philosophy. But maybe the biggest takeaway is this. Conquering laziness isn't about becoming a workaholic or pushing yourself to the limit. It's about living a life that's aligned with your values, a life that's full of purpose, joy, meaningful connections.
Waking up to the gift of life and approaching each day with intention, enthusiasm.
Beautifully said. That wraps up our deep dive into the art of laziness. We hope you got a lot out of it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep conquering those lazy tendencies.